In September of 2024, North Carolina, specifically Western North Carolina, was hit incredibly hard by Hurricane Helene, which brought Leaf Global Arts to the forefront of our mindsets and our hearts. We had to lean more deeply into the power of the arts to help us see the light. It started chaotic. Chaos happened. We had foundation. We just needed our stability. The one thing we knew that we wanted to keep bringing to people, even in times of disaster, was art. Because at some point in each of our lives, art and or music was a mechanism to healing.
Welcome to Provocative Conversations from Twice 5 Miles Radio. I'm your host, James Navé. You just heard a snippet from Schree Chavdarov, Global Engagement Director of Leaf Global Arts. In this provocative conversation, Schree and I talk about solidarity, resilience, and the healing power of culture. Let's welcome Schree to Twice 5 Miles Radio.
Thank you, Navé, for inviting me here in this beautiful location. It feels like I am stepping into an oasis space with you.
It is an oasis space, and yet there are no palm trees here, but there are lots and lots of standing trees. Sadly, the place was hit with a hurricane last fall. The people here at Lake Eden Retreat, they've done a lot of really great work, so things are back to somewhat normal.
Absolutely. The community is slowly but surely rebuilding in some of the most beautiful ways. Solidarity is definitely going to be a theme throughout our conversation here.
Let's just start with that. When you say solidarity, what do you mean by that? And give me some ideas around how that theme will play out in this conversation, as well as how we can play it out in our life.
Solidarity, the strength of people coming together for a common cause, not for individual gain, but when we see pain, hurt, and need in the community, solidarity brings us all together. And that has happened over the past year. Solidarity, resilience, natural disasters have all played a role in where we are right now and why you and I are sitting here in Black Mountain, North Carolina.
Well, we're here because you and I are both involved with Leaf Global Arts. You and I travel a fair amount around the world. You cover a lot of ground. You do a lot of work with a lot of people in the arts. We're here to talk about why that's important right now, 2025. Give us some reflections on why creative work, artistic work has great value now, not only for the people who encounter it, who want to be inspired, also for the people who make it.
I'll start by saying that I serve as the Global Engagement Director for Leaf Global Arts. And so I'm responsible for helping artists, teachers, musicians, and youth preserve their culture through music and the arts, the most beautiful, vibrant things about their culture we work together to preserve. Leaf is known for bringing all of these amazingly talented people together in one space to share and really cultivate new paths. Many people know in September of 2024, North Carolina, specifically Western North Carolina, was hit incredibly hard by Hurricane Helene, which brought global arts to the forefront of our mindsets and our hearts. It was already there. We had to lean more deeply into the power of the arts to help us see the light.
On a practical note, how did that play out?
Realistically, it started chaotic. Chaos happened. We had to find grounding, but we knew we had foundation. We just needed our stability. When we reached our arms out to the community, to the artists, to these talented teachers that are all a part of Leaf Global Arts, the one thing we knew that we wanted to keep bringing to people, even in times of disaster, was art. Because at some point in each of our lives, art and or music was a mechanism to healing.
So who were some of the people around here who played a role in that?
Wow. So many. Adama Dembele from Ivory Coast, West Africa, who's an amazing drummer and musician of 33 generations, literally picked his drum up and took it to any community center, any neighborhood that he felt like people needed to hear drumming. Jennifer Pickering, who is the founder and visionary connector of the organization, was in every community, asking people what they needed. She was heavy on the grounds. Erin Hartley, who is our current executive director, was still scheduling, engaging art projects in communities. So many people played a role, even if they were not directly in Asheville. They made a means to get to Asheville or get resources to Asheville. So it was truly a collective effort. Everybody who has played a role in the Leaf community also played a role in helping to rebuild in some way or capacity.
And you, what role did you play?
And me, I was actually in El Salvador at the time of the hurricane. So my house became a sanctuary for many, many friends. They were grateful that I wasn't there. At that time, I too had stepped into an event of resilience where I became best friends with a flesh-eating stomach parasite that I only would have expected to see or hear about in a movie. I misdiagnosed myself and thought that I had dengue, which I'd had before. I went to sleep on a Sunday night with a fever. I woke up Monday morning. I still had that fever. After a few hours, I lost the ability to walk and was immediately taken to the hospital. When I arrived, I had a temperature of 43 degrees, around 108, 109 degrees. And I had two people helping to carry me into the hospital. I couldn't move. Several tests were done, and I had a bacterial infection in my stomach that turned into a rare flesh-eating parasite that was eating the lining of my stomach from the inside out.
That sounds dramatic. How did it turn into that?
I waited too late and let the bacteria develop in ways that it shouldn't have. I should have taken myself to the hospital when I realized I had a fever. But, you know, fevers come and go, and told myself I would give myself more time. And so that infection developed into a parasite that hospitalized me for several months. And throughout those months, I learned resilience. I remembered solidarity. I had a team of people helping to take care of me. My immune system got completely crushed, and I had to start with the immune system of a 5-year-old child. So all of the things that I used to enjoy and eat, or things that I used to use in skincare, beauty, I had allergic reactions to, and I had to relearn what my body is today and now as a long haul person who is recovering from a parasitic infection.
And so where are you now with it? Do you feel strong? Do you feel weak in between?
I feel physically strong. I feel mentally strong. And I recognize that I have to be more cautious with my body and with what I eat and how I move. I feel fatigue much more than I used to. I'm happy that I'm alive to tell the story.
Well, you look like you're on your feet and you're not completely wobbling around, that's for sure. Let's talk about El Salvador. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what you are up to in El Salvador. And I know that you also spend time in other countries and you travel around the world. So give us an overview of that work and how that ties into your association with Leaf Global Arts.
Absolutely. I live across 3 continents right now. And each country I work in, especially El Salvador, I work with youth who are actively trying to preserve their culture, whether it be through traditional drum and dance, through ceremonial practices, through language preservation, food preservation, whatever their work is in the community. We help to source funds, we help to source teachers, we help to source instruments to continue their initiatives. And that coincides with a lot of the work that I also do with the United Nations, which helps women create businesses, whether they're seamstress, agriculturists, cultural keepers. We help them source funding to build businesses and create visibility throughout their networks and in their communities.
Give me some examples of someone who's built a business that you know of that we would like to know about.
Absolutely. I work with a phenomenal cooperative of women out of Kigali, Rwanda. They are known as the Inore. Inore in Kinyarwanda means hope and faith. So they're known as the women who provide hope and faith to the community. These women have been growing their own crops for ages. They really use medicinal plants to heal their families. That is the main source of income, but also of traditional treatment in the community. So they grow their own plants and they sell it. They sell it in the community just like it's medicine. And they've made these amazing connections with local drugstores and local grocery stores that also invest in them and help them sell their medicinal plants to other people in a wider and broader range. As many things that are revolving in the world right now, I think it's important that we continue to invest in our health. If you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? If I don't take care of my health, I cannot continue to do this passion work of creating global arts education for people across the globe. So I feel like an investment in health is an investment in self, is an investment in the arts, is an investment in community, is an investment in country.
You're talking about entrepreneurial drive here. You're talking about small businesses developing into larger businesses that will support communities they're operating in and beyond that. It's a global thing. Right now, we're having a lot of disruption in the world. There are wars. There's also peace. A lot of people engaging in artistic things all over the globe. Here in the States, the arts funding has been held back a great deal. So people are struggling in a sense for that. How much of what's going on in the States is influencing the global situation in terms of support? And instead of having artistic support from a governmental source, how do you deal with the entrepreneurial aspect of it? And does the entrepreneurial aspect of it support it more than we might suspect?
That's a great question, Navé, because a lot of my work is where entrepreneurial spirit, business spirit meets arts engagement. And that's how I combine the two. Through my travels, I've seen firsthand the decisions that are being made in the U.S. has a direct impact on a lot of global communities because of our history with relationships in other countries. And I'll just give you a few examples. Here at LEAF, many people know one of our largest grantees was the National Endowment of the Arts. And we recently lost that funding because we're losing funding for the arts. However, essential aid organizations also lost lots of funding, organizations that were responsible for helping create businesses. And so when I go back to East Africa and I work in several refugee communities throughout Kakuma, Kenya, I am seeing people become ill, sick, and deeper in poverty at a larger rate right now because of the aid funding that was pulled from their basic needs, from getting water into a refugee community, from getting their staple foods like corn, rice, beans. A lot of that funding that was taken from U.S. organizations directly had a negative impact on the refugee communities that the U.S. government has been supporting for decades and decades. And so we're seeing a shift in not only funding, but now how we as community have to go about taking care of ourselves. We have to reframe our mind and find other avenues that are not necessarily government dependent. So we have a challenge. We're faced with a challenge.
Give me some thinking around that, because this is a new problem. How are you doing that?
This is a new problem. It's made us go back to a more grassroots model where we're touching direct people. We're having conversations with donors on a direct level because the macro level is no longer serving us. It's not these big dominant organizations that always had funding. They're the ones that funding is getting cut. So we're now having to spread our arms into one-on-one interactions with humans and sharing stories in a different way that we weren't sharing them before.
So does that interaction with humans generate support where you didn't have it before?
It's multi-layered. So if it's not generating support, it's raising awareness, it's getting the word out, it's creating visibility for conversations that weren't being had before. And when we tell the story, that's the piece that I'm learning people are connecting to. Before, it was about the numbers and the data. And with the grants, we had to do numbers and data and impact. And that was the importance. But now the importance is more on the people and their stories. And that's what we're trying to highlight through these one-on-one conversations.
LEAF Global Arts is involved in many countries by way of the Culture Keeper program that's out there now, which you coordinate along with all the other work that you do. What are some of your ideas around how LEAF can engage without the funding that it's been getting all along?
LEAF International programs, there are 15 programs in 10 countries. Most of the programs were already operating long before LEAF were in the picture. So these artists and these teachers were already teaching cultural preservation even without or before support of LEAF. It's taking us back a step. In addition to highlighting their stories, in addition to highlighting what's happening in each community, I am trying to bring these people to the community. So when If you say, Schree, I've had Rwanda on my mind for a long time, I'm going to say, Navé, let's go. Let me give you an experience that you may feel like you want to invest in. Leaf is saying, if you want to go deeper than hearing our stories, let us show you. Come with us. Take this journey. The people are here and they're here to share. Step into the Leaf world and take this cultural journey with us. It's a wild ride. It's a roller coaster. Buckle up and hang on. But we want you to see and meet the people that you directly support. We don't want you to always just read about them. We want you to be connected to them. That's where gravitation starts. Those immediate connections. That's where we pull the gravity from. COVID in 2020 forced us to pivot and go digital, and a lot of things happen via Zoom and via video. This isn't a pandemic, but there has been a pandemic of natural disasters. And those natural disasters are, again, telling us to step back and reconnect. Reconnect with each other, reconnect with nature, reconnect with the environments that we are directly responsible for taking care of. So it's a reset. The world is telling us right now, reset. And it's okay to reset. It's okay to pause, think about it, sit in the stillness, because we as artists with our artsy, crazy, yet wild and good mindsets, we sometimes have to stop and listen to the silence, because in silence, we are redirected. Even though there is a lot of energy around funding being taken away right now, we are sitting in the silence of resilience and patiently listening for the next steps, because it's a dual process. It's not going to happen overnight. And we're in it for the long haul. We know that we've done it before. We've had the challenge of pivoting before, and we are up for the challenge of doing it again. And it just encompasses all of us creatives coming together and sharing like we are right now.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Leaf Global Arts in the different countries. Could you give us an overview of each one of the countries so we know where Leaf Global Arts is operating?
I will start from Latin America and work my way over. So Leaf currently operates in Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama. In the Caribbean, we are in Bequia y St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are also in Haiti. We are in New Orleans. Even though New Orleans is not a country, we feel like the culture of the Black masking Indians are definitely an international culture to be preserved. We also work in Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania, and Rwanda, and we have sister branches in Uganda and Malawi. Those are the places that we work.
And I'm thinking about trying to start something in the Philippines.
And we are trying to branch out to the Philippines in partnership with you, because it'll be the first program of that caliber in Asia for Leaf. So we are excited to explore. And that's a part of this work, cultural exploration and cultural curiosity, keeping the mind open to what we may not know.
Yeah, the fellow that I'm talking with, his name is Leonardo, and he's a poet. And I think I showed you his material. He's very well known in the Philippines, and he's more than a spoken word artist. His mission is to go out into the villages and find the people who are using the languages of the area and cultivate those languages and the stories from those areas. So Leonardo is a terrific poet. I've been to 2 or 3 of his shows. He has quite a range. He's connected with universities all over the Philippines. He's becoming somewhat celebrated. The best thing about him is his devotion to the spoken word from a very broad point of view, rather than from a more narrow point of view like we see sometimes in the States.
Right.
So he's broad, and he wants to bring people up, and he also wants to help them make production companies so they produce things in their areas for the arts as well.
You mentioned language preservation, that he was going into communities. That has been a focus of a lot of our Latin American programs, because they're more ceremonial, they're more based in nature, based with person-on-person contact. Expanding that throughout Asia, it will be our first spoken word program in our international work.
And I've been thinking about this for a long time, and since I've been doing spoken word here at Leaf Festival since it began, I'm very excited about helping that form in a way that will be expansive. One of the things that we don't think about much here in the States and in Europe, if I say I speak another language or you speak another language, you're probably going to tell me, and I know you do, you speak fluent Spanish and you have a few other languages there as well. I speak some French and some English. I don't really think about how many dialects people speak and how many languages there are around the world. Many of them going extinct. Some of them reemerging again. So I love the idea of promoting language, and I'd love to see spoken word done in multiple languages. Wouldn't it be great to have like 12 languages on the stage at Leaf?
Absolutely beautiful. And you're right. You know, when we think about languages, we get tunnel vision because we probably think about the top 5 most common languages spoken in the world. But when you really dive into global engagement and you dive into community, even with, let's say, Spanish, the Spanish that we speak in Mexico is going to be different from the Spanish in Guatemala and in El Salvador and Costa Rica, and it just keeps going. But also in places like Costa Rica, it's not only Spanish. They have 5 or 6, maybe more, First Nation indigenous communities that have their own language reserved for them, protected for and by them. The deeper we go, the juicier it gets. And I like to say culture is like a New Orleans gumbo. You put all the ingredients in the pot and you just let it simmer. And after 4 or 5 hours of simmering, you got something delicious. That's culture.
Oh, it is. And it's also lunch and dinner as well. Jennifer Pickering and I are working on the Leaf Global Arts book along with this terrific designer. Her name is Lauren, and she lives in New York. She's from the Leaf community. She's dramatically skilled in book design, interior and exterior. We are developing this book, and we are including a part of the book that has the Leaf Culture Keepers in. What kind of ideas might you have that you think would be worth including in that book with images and text? What do you think?
I think definitely reminding people the why these culture keepers are even represented in this book. And not only the why, but highlighting the accomplishments of each culture keeper or each program, because I do believe in the power of sharing success. All of us have our own journey and experiences right now in art and culture, but these culture keepers do the work that people don't see, and they do it every day. We see them when they show up on the stage with a group of youth is beautiful. That day-to-day, that everyday waking up and taking care of literally a village, literally hundreds of kids every day. I want that to be expressed in words so that the world can read about how phenomenal they are, not just on a stage, but in real life.
Do you have a story of someone specifically you could tell us?
I have several stories, but the first one that comes to mind, because he's coming in for the Leaf Summer Camp in just a few weeks. His name is Stanley. Stanley has been a student in the Leaf program in Haiti since 2013, maybe 2012. And we all know what's happening in Haiti right now. If we don't know, just turn on the news and you'll have your answer very, very quick. Stanley came to the U.S. to seek refuge here after losing several family members to war and crime in Haiti. And his story is immaculate. And again, another story of resilience, because he came here with just him and his drum. And Stanley never stopped drumming. And he said, even when I'm in pain and when I'm crying, when I don't see joy, I can play my drum and I feel better. I feel happy. My drum makes me happy. It was, again, a testament to what cultural arts has provided in someone's life. He is just one of many with incredible stories of resilience, but also a solution of how music and arts were integrated into their life in a way that kept them grounded.
Some of the students that have been involved in this, can you tell us a little more about where some of those people have gone and how it's benefited their lives?
Absolutely. You know, one of the goals for our Leaf International program is that youth and students at some point become teachers. We want to know when they go to university. We want to see their evolution. And so with many of the programs, the culture keepers that we have now were once students. And so we encourage our culture keepers to have a teaching assistant, have a young person who is shadowing you, so that when the time comes, or if you need to ever step away, you have that person who is doing the exact same thing, sharing the generational knowledge so that it's not lost in the stream of life. That's one of the privileges of this work, hearing someone have a baby and get married. Many of our, kids have gotten married and they have kids that they're teaching cultural arts to. They become teachers. They go to university. They learn new languages based on their experiences, cross-cultural exchanges through Leaf. They come back to Leaf and now they're headliner performers. There are so many layers of accomplishments that we get to see the youth through. But the best is when they come back to North Carolina with their families and they then integrate their family back into the Leaf family.
You mentioned you work with the UN. Could you tell us more about how your relationship with the UN started, how you partnered with the UN, and how that overlaps with Leaf Global Arts? Because I know you do both jobs.
Absolutely. I do both because I am an artist myself. I'm a visual artist, and I've always had a love for art. I've always had a love for music, and I've always been a businesswoman. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to see the avenues and pathways for communal success, bringing everybody in. And I recognize like a lot of art and promoting yourself as an artist has to do with business. You have to have some marketing instincts. You have to have some financial understanding. And so I said to myself, how can I combine my passion of art and culture with entrepreneurship? I had the art and culture through Leaf. And then with my work, the UN started when I was in undergraduate school, just going back and forth to New York, doing internships. But then I found my passion in helping other women with businesses. And I played around with businesses. I had women who were mentoring me. And I said, well, here's the avenue. These women are also artists and they're entrepreneurs. And the one thing that was missing was a financial capacity. So I became the bridge of having the UN support art and cultural endeavors in a business format and being able to mix Leaf and the UN simultaneously. And it worked because a lot of our culture keepers through Leaf have also gotten funding from the UN to elevate businesses. So now they're business owners and culture keepers. They've created community centers for their youth as a business, and they can still do what they love. So they created a business through their passion work, and I was able to help create that bridge. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be both and.
Business is an art form as much as anything else if you want it to be. How did you learn business?
When I was a teenager, not even a teenager, I was probably 12, all of my friends had cell phones. I did not have a cell phone. My father said, if you want a cell phone, you have to work for it. I'm not going to pay your bill for you. You have to work for it. So at 12 years old, my uncle would breed puppies and he had maybe 15 dogs. And every day I was responsible for giving them water and feeding them. And he would pay me a weekly allowance every week. And that's how I started paying my first bill. Now, fast forward, I was going to college. I graduated high school at 16 and was in college early. And I said, I need money. I'm on my own. My parents, I need money. And so my maiden name is Green. And I came up with this concept called Green's Cleaning, where I started cleaning houses for many elderly people in the Durham, North Carolina area. My catch was that all of my clientele suffered from chemical sensitivity, so they couldn't take the strong, harsh smells of Lysol and bleach. And so I started making my own cleaning supplies using baking soda and lemon juice, or baking soda and vinegar and lavender. And I started using it to clean the homes of this elderly community. And that's how I started my first business, which was called Green's Cleaning, your friendly local cleaning company. And it was just me paying my bills, trying to get through college. And that cleaning company got me through my undergraduate.
You were also doing art and painting at the same time.
Absolutely. I was doing internships with the UN. I was still an artist doing my own artwork. I was still working a full-time job on the side in addition to launching a business. And at that time, I didn't think I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't think I'm a business owner. I was thinking I'm becoming an adult and this is a part of the process. But as I got deeper and deeper in understanding entrepreneurship, art, business, alignment, I started to see where I could put the pieces of the puzzle together.
And when you went to college, what did you study?
In college, I studied Africana Women Studies with a focus on the African diaspora as well as entrepreneurship. I went to graduate school at Western Carolina University and I got a master's in entrepreneurship to help further meet the needs of women throughout the world. Because there are so many business owners, there are so many women who are already entrepreneurs, but just like me when I was 16, they don't know it yet.
And when you were growing up, you grew up in North Carolina.
I grew up in North Carolina in a small town called Creedmoor, North Carolina, where it's nothing but country and red dirt. If you blink, you'll miss the town and you can count all the stoplights on one hand.
Well, what was it like in such a small town, and where is it located relative to a larger town?
It's about 20 miles north of Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina. It was fulfilling for me. It was a small town, but it was very diverse. All of my friends represented many or multiple nationalities. So I felt free. And in the same sense, I had to step outside of that town to identify myself, to learn who I was, to grow in who I was. Even though I had access to multiculturalism, I still didn't hold it at the importance that it should have been. I didn't understand how important it was, what I had in that small town. I didn't understand it until I left the country. When I left this country and started to travel is when I understood the importance of representation, but also my self-identity as a Black woman growing up in the South, in the country. When I started traveling is when I understood what that identity meant.
People who live in big cities don't think of small American towns as having that much diversity. They think of them as having a McDonald's, a strip with a Walmart on it, and a few houses here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, that's true.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How did your area become so diverse?
Because it was highly affordable, close to a big city, you could get anywhere you needed to easily, but it was also very peaceful. Everybody knew everybody. For example, if my father and I walked in Food Line, we would be in the grocery store for 3 or 4 hours, not shopping, but because everybody knows everybody. So we're stopping and having these conversations with different people. So I think the small town charm, the safety of the small town and affordability lended itself to many people being in that area at the same time. I mean, I'm so grateful for it because my family also pushed diversity. My mom was always like, bring your friends over. Bring your friends to the house. We want to meet your friends. And my family always wanted to know who I was hanging with, but wanted to know their parents because that's a part of the piece of connection. So I played softball. If I'm going to a softball player's house, my dad would say, okay, who are the parents? Let's go meet the parents. That small town vibe, I think, is what kept people there.
Diversity is now charged as a word.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved diverse things. I like the diverse environment of Western North Carolina. I like the diversity that a big city offers. I go to Manila. How much more diversity could one get? So many moving parts. Why do you think diversity has gotten such a charged name? What's going on with that? And can that even be changed? And is there another word we could use to replace it?
I think the concept and the mentality of people have tried to put the word diversity in a box. They're trying to contain it. And the realities are diversity is natural. It's natural. It's not forced. We are sitting in one of the most diverse regions for rainforest right now, looking through a window at several different diverse species of plants right now. Diversity doesn't have to be forced, but when we put it in a box and we say, this is diversity, and we have to try to list it out, then things become complex. Because diversity isn't complex. Diversity is present in itself, in its form. The diverse amount of couches in this space right now. So I think because we're trying to contain diversity and attach it to race or ethnicity or certain terms, it has given pushback when the reality is diversity was here before us and is going to be here long after us in every place we step into.
Let's continue on. Diversity, equity, inclusion. All three have gotten really bad pushback in lots of camps. Equity. Talk about equity. I like to have equity in my financial life, right?
Right.
Equity is something that I enjoy. I like to have equal ground when I'm working with my collaborators. Express some thoughts on equity.
Right. So when you think of the term, most people, especially entrepreneurs or business-minded folks, think about finances and how it relates to business. But also equity and inclusion and diversity is also a way of life. I want to take race and ethnicity off of the top of that because oftentimes the conversations steer around those topics, race, gender. And the reality is when we talk about equity, in the sense of community is many things. It is having a walkway for accessibility for someone who is in a wheelchair. Is having Braille for someone who can't see. Is access to every layer of life in an equal way. And I want to dive deeper into that because people know that diversity, equity, and inclusion has been under attack here in the States specifically. These conversations aren't so mighty in other countries. They're not such a focal point in other global countries. And I want to say that because here in the States, we tend to get into this narrow path where it's our way. It's got to be this way, when in fact, it's not our way. Equity, diversity, inclusion, all important, but they've been used in ways that limit the possibilities. And it's much bigger than us. It's much bigger than having representation of race or gender. It's deeper. It's access to things for a lot of people outside of our normal standards.
And equity would also be an education as well.
Absolutely.
Also, manners would come under the idea of equity. A mannerly person has the opportunity to interact with everyone on an equal level.
Right. Equity is being able to have a parking spot for someone who is a disabled person, who can easily get in and out of a building. When people talk about equity, I always think, what would my elders say? What would my elders want? What would my grandmother need at 85 years old in her life to make her comfortable walking into any space?
And I'm thinking from a Southern point of view, because we both grew up in North Carolina. In the South, there's a great tradition of inviting people to sit down for a meal. Right. So somebody knocks on the door, oh, come on in, we're having supper. We'll make a plate for you.
Right.
If that's not equity, what is? So when people get all up and bundled around equity, they forget how equity-driven they might be with invitations. You go to church. The door is open. We invite all people to come and sit in the pew and listen to what the preacher has to say. That's equity. It's an equal divine opportunity.
Absolutely. And most people forget that equity has already been streamlined in different areas of their life. Maybe they didn't know it. At some point in life, they have needed an equitable resource or equitable tool to get to another place, whether it been for them or their parents or whoever. If they've been in school, there have been resources that are equitable that they've needed access to. So many people have already had equitable experiences, but maybe don't know the term well enough to relate to it.
Even the highway system is equitable.
You have your fast lane, you have the lane where you need to pull over.
And you have the dirt road that leads off through the fields, and you have the expressway that goes into LA.
Boom.
And we all get on it and we drive, and some people that don't have cars put their thumbs out.
Exactly.
And hitchhike.
Exactly.
So there you go.
There's another layer. It's another layer.
So we have to bring up inclusion as well, since we're talking about this. I remember when I was in elementary school, at recess, we would go to the playground. People would divide up for the teams. I wanted to play on the baseball team. I wanted to be chosen to be first base. So I wanted to be included. I love to get invitations to dinner parties. I love to get invitations to coffee. I love to invite people to dinner parties, and I love to invite people to coffee. I like to be included. Am I unusual?
No, you are not. Over time, these devices and other technological advances, I think, have created a little bit of separation between the natural notion of connection, the natural notion of being invited, Back in the day, we didn't invite anybody to the house. It would be Sunday and everyone on the block would just know that my dad was cooking and grilling and they could come grab a piece of grilled barbecue chicken. No invitation necessary. They would just come, right? Because they knew everybody is included and welcomed at the Green's house. They knew that. Over time now, things have shifted, right? The ways of the world. And it's like, well, now you need an invitation to come to my house. You can't just drop by. It's not good manners now to just pop up at certain people's homes. They find it intrusive in this day. So now you got to call like, hey, I'm on your side of town. Can I drop by? But at one point in time, before we had these phones, you were included. You already knew that inclusion was in my house. You could come in, knock on my door at any time because we didn't have that phone.
Could it be systemic inclusion?
Absolutely.
Invitation stood because you stood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now times have changed because people are much more timid and everybody has reason. Everybody has reason. But you are right. That notion of inclusion has changed over time. And there are certain people, that will pop up at your house and you will say, yes, come in. And others you might be like, well, I didn't have that in my plans for today.
Well, I think it's worth talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion
Absolutely.
with these frames, because we've almost industrialized it as a topic that has been so narrowed down that we forget all of the range that's there and how it's built into everything we do, whether we like to admit it or not.
Absolutely. And remembering it looks different depending upon where we are in the world. When I'm in El Salvador and I'm talking about equity and inclusion and diversity, conversations steer more toward colorism because that is the perspective that they have. They don't have a lot of people of African descent in El Salvador. They have a darker complexion or a lighter complexion. And that was the basis of acceptance. So it wasn't like here where we're like fighting racism or, having these other conversations around gender identity. Those conversations and pieces look different depending upon where we are in the world. My conversations about equity in El Salvador are completely different than my conversations about it here because the issues are different.
That is true. I've noticed that in the Philippines.
The issues are different. Same with being in Rwanda because it's an African nation. So their view of racism is different. They hadn't had a lot of head-on experiences with racism as some of African folk in the U.S.
When I traveled in West Africa years ago for the international schools, I went to 5 or 6 West African countries. My skin was much lighter than everybody else's. I was in the minority big time. Mm-hmm. Nobody seemed to care one way or another. You just walk around, everybody's everybody.
Right. That's why I said, depending upon the country you're in, your experience with these conversations are going to be different. Completely different. When I'm in Latin America, my conversations are sometimes geared toward African people, Black people, because people are curious, not because of anything bad, but they are curious. Like, where are you from? Tell us more about the history. They want context because they don't have that context. And what I also am remembering right now is when I was teaching a class in Tanzania and I was talking about El Salvador and Guatemala. And several of the youth said, well, where is that? We only know where Mexico and Brazil is. And it was a reminder that their education system also is not teaching them about certain places and spaces in history. They didn't have a lot of information about Latin America or Central America. So they only could name their reference points, which was Mexico. They see and hear on the TV and the news, and Brazil, they hear about the culture of Brazil, the football teams from Brazil. So their understanding of Central South Latin America was based upon what they've seen because they didn't hear a lot. They weren't taught a lot about the countries in Central America. So that was also perspective.
And we all have that.
Yeah.
I know a lot about the world, and yet if somebody pushes me to name all the countries in the former Soviet Union, I come up short.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of holes in my knowledge. I'm no different than anybody else.
Absolutely.
It's all referenced around what I know. So as we come to the end of our time, would you reflect just a little bit on where you're going, what you're doing, how you're going to be involved in all of this new horizon?
Absolutely. Well, we started with the theme of solidarity and resilience, and I plan to carry that throughout the summer. We have several artists all over the globe, but specifically from Haiti coming in to teach a Leaf Summer Camp. We're looking forward to a phenomenal festival in October where hopefully we have representatives from Tanzania joining us. And so we're just continuing to sit still while steadily moving in some weird and autonomous way. And we're continuing to rebuild. We're continuing to rebuild and connect because this is what we need. This is what our hearts need. So the next few months feels like more connection, more sharing, more music, more art, more joy.
Schree, thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me.
Thank you, Navé. It's always a pleasure and such a beautiful space. Thank you.
And there you go, my friends. Thus concludes my conversation with Schree. I hope you have a better sense of what Leaf Global Arts does in the range that it has. Before we go, I'd like to thank Walter Parks for our theme song, walterparks.com for more on Walter's music. I'd like to remind you this show airs every weekend on WPVM-FM in Asheville and KCEI-FM, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos. You can always reach me, Navé, at jamesnavé.com. Navé is spelled Nave. And if you'd like to improve your writing chops, go to imaginativestorm.com. And there you will find all kinds of resources for writing, including the workshop I host with my creative collaborator on Zoom every Saturday between 12 and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and every Thursday between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Imaginativestorm.com is the place to go if you'd like to improve your writing. So on that note, once again, thanks for listening. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your attention. I hope you come back sometime soon. And until then, I'll catch you on that turnaround somewhere down the line. Here's a little bonus. Since we're all about leaf love, here's Big John Scher singing Love Me Tender.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfilled. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. Love me tender, love me long, never let me go. For it's here that I belong, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfilled. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. Love me tender, love me dear, tell me you are mine. I'll be yours through